A lot of people have talked about the Super Eagles of Nigeria, about how we seem to have a preponderance of players who are more than willing to commit their futures to the national team of Nigeria. But there are those who continue to argue that the basis for every Nigerian national, any national team in the world, should be players who are born, raised, and ply their trade here in Nigeria, especially in the MPFL. So how do we marry these two opposing views going into the future, considering the fact that there are plenty of talented players born, raised in the diaspora who are willing to commit their international futures to Nigeria, and there is still another, a preponderance of players, a deluge of players here in Nigeria capable, just about to make the breakthrough into international football. Well, joining us from the United Kingdom is football administrator and consultant of David Doherty Consulting. I'm talking about Mr. David Doherty himself. He joins us from the United Kingdom. Thank you very much tonight for joining us tonight, Mr. Doherty. It's an interesting topic. Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I know it's one that you are particularly passionate about. In fact, some people have actually said that you are particularly key to getting some Nigerian individuals, football players, to commit their international futures to Nigeria. And a lot of people argue that maybe this is where we should go. Look for these players who are born, raised, and trained in an excellent foreign environment to play for Nigeria, and just bring in a sprinkling of other players. Do you agree with this?
For me, it's for we looking at balancing both. I'm of the support of both ends. Don't forget, I'm a Nigerian, regardless where I live or anywhere. I've lived in Nigeria, born in Nigeria, grew up. We're footballers. Football is mostly enjoyable as well when it comes to Surulere. That was where I was born. I played football in Nigeria. So I understand what it is to actually play there, wants to actually represent Nigeria. So I think it's just for us to look at, balancing both parts and see how we can, get the better of both ends. So there's nothing bad having both coming into our national team at any of the levels anyway.
Well, I mean, there are still those who are talking about who haven't yet committed their international futures to Nigeria, the likes of Tosin Adarabioyo. Excellent central defender with Fulham. We hear he's on the verge of making a move to Chelsea. Should it be a policy of the Nigerian Football Federation to actively pursue these players, hoping that they can change, their nationalities and commit to Nigeria, or should we just hold up our hands and wait for those who come knocking and want to play for Nigeria? What, in your opinion, should the policy be?
I think we shouldn't be, England doesn't go after players, don't forget. Germany doesn't. They have the system, they have the database, they have the structure in place, so they know who you are. I think that's the first thing we need to look at. I'm talking about those playing back home in the NPFL, those in schools, those in community teams, those in academies and all that. We should have a database. If you have all those things, so you will know where those players are already. You know the level they are. You know all those things. So that is something that is missing. But in terms of going to them, you shouldn't. If you have something that is good, if your brand is solid, if the way you do things is professional enough, people will come calling. People will come. Nigeria is big. We're big in terms of numbers. We're big in terms of how do you want to look at it, talents and all that? So we shouldn't be going after anybody to play.
Sorry to cut you short, sir. So you're saying that maybe we shouldn't have made an active ploy or an active play for the likes of Saka, who plays for Arsenal, or Eze, who plays for Crystal Palace, or even Olise, who hasn't actually committed himself to even England or anyone. You say we shouldn't actually actively pursue them. Is that what you're saying?
No, we can. But what I'm trying to say is you don't make it something like, oh, listen, you don't make it feel desperate. That's what I'm trying to, that's the word I'm trying to pick out here. Nigeria itself is known for having to have, a lot of talents who've done it in the past. We've got players that have done it even at the World Cup level that are good. They've done it in Premier League, in top leagues in Europe and all that. So having to do that is like you're actually selling yourself to so cheap. England don't do that. Trust me. They know how to get these boys. They do all these things behind the scene. You will never see me come out and say, oh, I'm involved in having to get this player to come to. I would never talk about it. What I do is just go behind the scene, talk to these boys, talk to their parents and all that. And then the rest is history. You don't have to put it out there to make it known that, oh, I'm talking to this, like Pinnick did the other time, taking picture. We've done all those things behind the scene at the back. You don't need to go and be making all sort of noise. It's not your job. Get into the administrative part of the job and get on with your own. Leave the other things for people to do behind the scene, and the rest will be history. This is what England and everybody does. So rather than going out there, putting things out there, putting news up there, oh, taking pictures, I'm here with Maisie, or no, people that will play for you will play for you. And players are too much enough for us back home and here to pick from. So it's just for us to put our house in order. Players will come calling. Trust me.
All right. First of all, let me say that I'm a big fan of what you do. I follow your platform vigorously, and I think you're doing a fantastic job. So please continue with that. I would say that, let me take you back to 2020, or rather 2017, talking about the FIFA 20 World Cup. That England team that won that World Cup had about 6 Nigerian players of origin in that team. Talking about likes of Ademola Lookman, Solanke, there were so many of them. Exactly, Sheyi Ojo was also part of them. Now, when you take a look at young players at that point in time, what should be, should I say, the protocol? Because at what point in time do we start trying to get these players to come play for Nigeria? Because, I mean, for a young player, they will be thinking about, okay, there's a prospect of playing for quote-unquote a bigger country. Because it's very hard to convince young players. What is the strategy? Do you go through the parents? Do you go through the players?
Now, for us, what we do is simple. Let me quickly touch on the part that you mentioned, the likes of those players that you mentioned in the camp with England. I was at that camp. I went there to see them, based on because you can easily access the English camp, and that's one thing I enjoyed, and mostly with camps in Europe. So I actually go through the director of grassroots sports for the English FA, who is a friend of mine. So I went there purposely, not because of anything, but just purposely because of this same Lookman that people are. Because I've got access to others. It's only Lookman that is quite, having to prove some kind of, trying to do this hide and seek, because, so I actually caught him unaware, and he was surprised and all that. I had a chat with him, brief one. He felt, so somehow looking as if you want me to play for Nigeria. Who is this guy? But he knew who was talking, but he was just trying to play, hide and seek and trying to say, oh, I'm an English player now, I want to play for England and all that. But for me, I wouldn't get that, from them. I just went straight, tell him what I wanted to say, and then get them to sign a Nigerian jersey, which is the Adidas one, which was presented to something. Moving away from there, how do we do these things? Look, this is one of the things I've made campaign about, told NFF. I've had meetings with several of these FA boss, the last one before Gusto, and I've even had a chat with him on this as well, that we can have a quota, numbers of players from grassroots, from the under 15s. Let's say we have Nigeria under 15, which is the future Eagles. We can have some of this Nigerian descent. They don't have to be from UK. They could be in academies in Germany and all that, that are eager and already doing very well in all these academies. Known kids that you can point out. So, and they've got track record. We can start, bringing them in gradually. For example, 3 or 4 young people can come into the Eaglet or the future Eagles from the diaspora. That way, you're telling them that, listen, the doors are open. We can bring them in. If you're good enough, you can come in. But the thing I've noticed is that the problem we're having is that with the under 15 and under 17, it's quite difficult because of the mindset. And I think that's what the coaches have from back home. About players have come in there and they've told me the same thing. And the same thing that was happening is that they said to them that, listen, you are already settled. You're in an academy. You're in a structure. You're in a system that is working. This very under 15 and under 17 is for the real young people coming from Nigeria, playing in Nigerian, system and all that. And that is where, it becomes difficult trying to get. So we need to start from the youth stage now and start bringing them in so that others from the under 17, under 20, or under 23s, or the elite level can know that, listen, there is a pathway for them. If they want to play, I can tell you as I speak, over 50 young people, both boys and girls, Tottenham, Crystal Palace, boys and girls I'm talking, playing very well, that wants to play for Nigeria. And the thing is just on the back of, the performance of Super Eagles at the AFCON. And this is what we want.
Okay. We've been speaking with Mr. David Doherty of David Doherty Consulting. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And like Ope said, keep up the great work, because, of course, we're already reaping the benefits. The likes of Ademola Lukman, Ola Aino, and many more have been excellent additions to the Nigerian national team. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.